Welcome to learnanalytics.org. If you're joining us for the first time, we are continuing our video series on helping job seekers like you um, find a job. And so in our first video, what we did was we took a deep dive with Hubert and I. We took a deep dive into a job posting and how you can go about tackling that, identifying where you can improve or seek out ways to craft your resume, so to speak. But if you don't have a resume, perfect. You're in the perfect place for us to kind of do that today, because we're going to help anyone without a resume. We're going to help people with resumes that they want to improve on. So yeah, if you don't want to miss any future videos, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel because it really helps us continue to help you guys. So yeah, we just want to continue the series here today. And the first thing we're going to look at is what a resume might look like. So I'm going to share my screen here.
Sounds good, Jackson.
Cool. Hubert, you see my screen?
Yep, we could see it. Yep, we're good.
Super. So this might be what your resume might look like today. It has, your personal information, education, your experience, and some of the skills you might have for looking for, a data analyst position. Maybe you're looking for something else. That's okay. And it might look differently. But our goal today, Hubert and I's goal for you today is we can improve upon this, how we can make it better. Anything else you might want to add, Hubert?
Yeah, just like what Jackson said already, like this might look like a resume that you have right now, or a resume that you probably seen that's very the baseline template, right? Pretty standard education, experience, volunteer experience, and your skills, right? But really, like what we want to do is we want to help you guys like improve that, right? And we want to make it really shine in front of a recruiter, right? A recruiter only tends to spend like 30 to 40 seconds on a resume, and really he or she is really trying to identify someone who could really is a good fit for the role, right? So what we'll be doing a little bit more is the next step, we'll dive into three different sort of data entry roles for data analysts. And then we'll try to find common themes within that and how to really walk you guys through how we will improve this resume and ultimately land on a resume that we feel really good with. So cool.
Cool. So just to give you guys a little bit of recap from last week, what we did was we looked at a job description, like what they're looking for in a person, what they do at the company, what are the requirements. And so what we really did and feel is could be helpful to your job journey is breaking one down in depth, taking a deeper dive into what they're really looking for, but also what do some of these jobs all have in common so that when you're building your resume, it can scale across every job posting you do. So what I mean by that is 3, 5 companies, they're typically going to be asking for the same things for a data analyst. And so that's what we're going to do today. So Hubert and I, we took the liberty of grabbing that shipped job description from last week. And I advise all of you guys to try this out because it really helps you, frame out what you might need to put on your resume. Put it in a Google Doc and just highlight some of the core skills that you might want to list within your resume. Hubert, right? When recruiters are scanning through a resume, what do you think they're looking for ultimately?
Yeah, I think one of the key things, we'll walk it through here with this example, right, is really in the resume, are you able to demonstrate some of the key qualities that they're looking for, right? So, like, for example, if you just take a look at in this job description, right, there's two key components, your responsibilities and requirements, right?
Mhm.
So when we're talking about that, yeah, we could highlight some of these things as we go, right? So like one thing that I would point out right away is the analysis portion, right? So
Mm.
having strong analytical skills, right? Provide ongoing analysis, right? Um, so I think that's one we could start out with.
Okay.
Um,
So would you recommend that I highlight these as we go? Is that
yeah, let's do that.
sure?
Yeah. So I
Um,
mean, go ahead, Jackson. Do you want to have anything to add too?
I think what we're doing here, Hubert, like this is really helpful because it does exactly what, as you said, right? Recruiters are looking for those specific skills, and highlighting those skills and putting it on a resume is what you want to do.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, continue, Hubert.
Yep. And then the other one that I actually wanted to point out again is actually the next bullet point, right? So a lot of, especially data entry, entry level data analyst roles, right? There would be a lot of sort of like dashboard or report building type of stuff, right? And you could see it right here. It says build reports and analytical capabilities, right? So let's highlight that one as well.
Yeah, and one thing to note, guys, is when you're highlighting these, just pick the keywords. Um, I think copying everything will be pretty overbearing. It's great that it's a role where you're sharing dashboards with other teams and other functional groups, but you don't have to highlight everything. The key here is to get the keywords. But yeah, go
Yep.
on. Bert.
Yep. Another one I see from here is actually very similar, but tends to a lot of roles, of course, there's a KPI, right? Component, right? Which is, our key performance indicators, right? So, how to use, how to keep track of them? How do you monitor them, right? How do you drive towards it, the target KPIs? So,
Cool.
yeah.
Something that sticks out to me is that they're looking for strong R, Python, and SQL. And these are some of the common tools that, Hubert and I have experience with, but uh, SHIP, they're looking for a data analyst. They're also expecting a data analyst to have uh, those language skills as well. Um, these languages are used to interpret data, play with data, clean data, and so forth. Another thing I see is data visualization tools. Tableau. Tableau is a big buzzword within data analytics, visualization. So I would definitely recommend highlighting that. I want to pause here because you might not be looking for a data analyst role, and that's completely fine. If you're looking for an operations analyst role, or if you're looking to be a counselor, a teacher, you're going to be doing the same thing, right? You're going to be scanning a resume, a job description, excuse me, and you're going to be highlighting the keywords that they're looking for in a potential teacher or counselor. So just keep that in mind. This is all encompassing. It's not restricted to just data analyst roles.
Yeah.
What
So,
else do you
oh,
see?
I wanted to add one more thing to that point. Like, yeah, like we're just doing sort of what we would do for a how do you improve your resume, right? And how do you apply to these jobs in the best way, right? Like back to what Jackson was saying, like if you're looking for a data scientist role, right, or you're looking for a data engineer role, right, or maybe a product manager role, right? Like these simple, similar exercise can be applied for any job descriptions. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think adding to that, another thing that I wanted to highlight that they talk about here is sort of like both the problem solving and as well as the data driven decision mentality, right? I think both of them are so important because really you want to join a company as well as you want to be a data analyst to really speak to the data, right, and help others sort of make decisions with data, right, and you have to in somewhat of a way to be able to problem solve. I'm sure you're going to find that in a lot of job descriptions. So
Yep, agreed. Cool. So I think that is the end of the line in terms of the ship job description. And so, secret to share with you guys, Hubert and I actually went through these just yesterday to prepare them for you guys. So we actually looked at a job description from Tesla. We did the same exact thing as you saw from the ship job description. We're just looking for the keywords, highlighting them. And just for good measure, we also did it for a company called Benchling. So just again, looking for the keywords and uh, kind of jotting those down. Um, what Hubert? Why is it important for us to look at multiple job descriptions as opposed to just one? Like, can you?
Yeah, so I think once again, it's going back to Jackson's original point, right? Because when you're applying jobs, right, with that resume, and you can find yourself spending a lot of time if you tailor every single resume to every single job, right? At the end of the day, like I think this will really help you because for example, we looked into 3 different jobs. We see a lot more similarities than differences, right? Honestly. And we're going to highlight them on the next page. But yeah, really, we want to be able to, like, oh, these are the 3 different jobs. How can we find the common themes, right? And then fine tune our resume to apply to these common themes, right? And then it will save you a lot of time. And I think this will also increase your chances actually.
Hmm.
But yeah, so
Cool. So now that we have highlighted these keywords from these 3 job descriptions, what you'll want to do is you want to copy them into sort of a table. So I have it down here already for you guys, but it's really straightforward. What you're really doing is you're grabbing all these highlights. If you're curious how to do the insert table, it's really simple. We're going to do a table insert with 3 columns for the 3 companies, right? And then we'll just do a box for the job description. So that's all you're really doing. You're putting the company name here and then the job description. That's all this really is. But it's really valuable because you're able to see it from a bird's eye view, compare and contrast between the 3 different companies. So these were some of the core skills, high value requirements that these companies are looking for. Hubert, do you want to dive into just the ones that you are noticing across these uh, different companies? And as you mentioned at first, tailoring your resume, like creating 3 separate resumes, just might not make sense. So I think what you're saying was to create one resume, but to grab the most common themes from them, right? Is that what?
yep, yep. So yeah, like we could talk about it right now, and the viewers will actually understand. Like, yeah, there's actually, like, from what I said, and this exercise that we, me and Jackson were doing, you actually see a lot more similarities than differences, right? So, for example, report and analytical capability, right? In the ship one, that's what you see. On the Tesla one, you also see similar, right? Providing strategic insights, development, and reporting analytics platforms, right? And then on the Benchling one, you see building dashboards and reports, right? Honestly, all 3 of them are really different ways of saying the same thing, right? So that's something we found right away, right? And then another one, common one, similar, right? That we saw was actually the ability to know some type of business intelligence dashboarding tool, right? So you
Mm,
see Tableau there on the ship, right? On the Benchling one, you see data visualization tools, Tableau, Looker, very similar
mm,
categories there. Um,
that is a good point. Why don't we highlight those for the viewers?
yep. And then I think another one, as you're gonna know that while you're applying for data analyst roles or a lot of data roles, the ability to know some type of SQL, as well as R and Python, right? It's just a vital component for to know some of these tools to query the data, manipulate the data, right? So,
Yep, I like that.
any last ones you see common as well on your side?
Yeah, I think one thing to note is just something that I see is just the ability to communicate your findings to other people. I see that for Shipped. I see that for Benchling. I'm sure Tesla also requires it, But as a data analyst, if you have data and you can't explain it, that's not going to be really good, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have some insights, you want to be able to share that with people and help people in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So let me highlight that for us here.
Yeah, adding on to that, like it's the same thing. Like you'll probably find a lot of these job descriptions talk about sort of like data-driven decision making, right?
Mm,
Like creating a data culture, right? Benchling has a different word, metrics-driven culture, versus ship that's really data-driven decision mentality, right? So, but they're ultimately saying the same thing, right? Like, how do you make good sound decisions with data? So,
sure,
yep.
sure. Um, the only thing I would like to add is you'll notice that some of these aren't highlighted. And some companies might just be looking for more specific technologies or skill sets. So for the Tesla data analyst, they're expecting someone to know machine learning, uh, someone being the data analyst. But these companies aren't expecting the person to know machine learning. And so when you're applying to certain jobs, like we said in the first video, if you didn't catch it, it's if you can match up to 60 to 80% of the job description, I'd say that's really good and just apply anyway. But some of these, if you're doing this exercise and some of these aren't highlighted across, 3 or 5 or 10 job descriptions, it might be just a very job uh, company specific requirement. Um,
Yeah,
cool,
good
cool.
point. Good point there. Yep.
Anything to add here, Hubert, before we dive into the exciting part of just improving our existing resume um, and figuring out what to put on that resume?
Um, no, I think we're ready to move on to the next part. But like back to what Jackson was saying, don't feel like because you don't have some of the requirements or responsibilities, you're not applying for that job, right? Like we said, if maybe you are learning Python, right, and maybe you have heard about these machine learning libraries, right, for that Tesla role, but yeah, then then it's something to note about, right? I should learn this, if I want to work for Tesla, right? Versus maybe another company doesn't require that, but like don't sell yourself short and don't apply because you don't know it right now, right?
Mm,
So yeah.
cool. Let's get into the exciting part of this video. Just hang on for a second here. I want to share with you guys what Hubert and I did with what you just saw. So, do you see my screen, Hubert?
Yep.
Okay, so what we did was we took the commonalities, common themes across these three companies, and we created just kind of this document here saying what are the common themes, requirements that we saw across these companies, because we're going to be translating all of these skills to our existing resume.
Yep.
So let's hide this real quick.
Should we quickly recap that one uh, to some of the viewers, possibly?
This one,
Oh, just the common themes. So yeah,
go
we
ahead.
could give a quick recap from what we found. Right, it seemed like all three roles, it's a data analyst role. So having analytical capability, right, and ability to do that is very important, right? We saw some type of reporting and development capabilities, right, of that. Expectation of having to use, some type of R or Python as well as SQL, right? And then, yeah, back to what I was saying before, data-driven decision making, right? What Jackson said earlier, strong communicator, able to communicate with the storytelling part, right? And then other ones that we also saw were actually data visualizations, right? Using such as Tableau or Looker, ability to learn some data platforms, right? AWS, Redshift, I think this one's more of like also an add-on, but we did see it come across a little bit. Was like the ability to know how to do some data pipeline stuff, right? But I would say these are some of the requirements we saw. So
Cool. So just looking at our resume over here, I believe that the user or Tyrone here has tried their best to incorporate all these skills. Um, we're gonna talk through this first pass that Tyrone did, and then we're gonna show you the improved version right after. So just Hubert, what are your initial impressions with this resume on your left here?
yeah, I think that's a great question. So like the resume on the left that I see is it's really sort of like the baseline version, right? It's not really bringing these to life, I would almost say, right? Now we know these major themes, right? And these major themes are the ones that recruiters are looking for, right? But if I were to look at the resume on left, just some of the things I see is that it's not coming to life for me, right? Like I'll take the example of the experience piece, right?
Okay.
So a lot of the a lot of the content or the bullets, right, are very just like this is what I worked on, right? It doesn't carry like, oh, what is the impact I actually drove, right? So
Hmm.
how did I really here demonstrate analytical capabilities, right? What is the type of reporting that I did for the capabilities, right? So it doesn't really address those things. And I'm not able to see that sort of like the strong communicator as well. So I would say like this resume only states the obvious, but doesn't tell the story, you know?
Hmm.
But what's your
Well,
thoughts here? What's your thoughts?
well, I want to ask you here, Hubert. I
Yeah,
mean, Tyrone here, he's saying that he made reports, he has SQL, he did some analysis, and he also like did some data pipelining here. I mean,
yeah.
that checks off the boxes here, analytical ability, reporting, the languages and pipelines. Why do you think that's not enough, or
Yeah.
why?
So, yeah, I think that's a great question, right? Like, once again, I'm going to go back to a recruiter looking at it, right? A
Okay.
recruiter looking at it is really looking for a very good fit, right? She's not looking for someone who's just okay, or she's not looking for someone who's just good, right? But like when you read this, it's like, if I look at this resume, it's more like, okay, great. You developed a monthly report for customer success and product directors, right? But I'm like, wait, what's in that report, right? What's the outcome, right? Did you help the company drive some value, right? Like, or were you just creating this report, right? And then the other thing is, okay, great, you learned SQL, uh, but what did you do with it? like, like you just can't use buzzwords, right? Like ultimately, it's the same thing. Like, okay, it's great, you analyze performance of marketing campaigns, but what did you do with it? We're not sure, right? So I
I
think where we can help here is actually in the resume we're gonna compare and contrast that is the one that we built, right? And the viewers will see how we're able to make it shine a lot more, right?
got
So
it.
yeah,
So what I'm hearing, just to recap, is that it's great that you're checking off a box, but you also want to highlight what impact you made with what you did. Is that what I'm hearing?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay. Cool.
yeah.
Anything else that might bother you or might be improved upon? I mean, I'm looking at volunteer experience. It looks okay. What about the skills section?
Yeah, I think this is where it's sort of like, for example, the skill section. I see
Mhm.
a lot of great, terrific skills on there, right? But
Yeah.
it seems to me a little bit more about you're just like putting in a lot of buzzwords.
Oh,
Like you're putting in like, oh, what's the most Python packages that I've used recently, or just like machine learning. It's just like a topic, like okay, like once again, someone on the other side is like, okay, what did you really do with machine learning? They're like, okay, this skill, but the next question they'll ask is like, oh, what do you know about it, right? Like you just can't throw in another buzzword on there, right? To just get them to, uh, to catch their attention or whatnot. But what's your thought here on here?
Yeah, I think when you say buzzword, it sounds like it's a negative thing to do where you're just listing everything out. It sounds like if someone's just putting all these things down, they might just be putting down a checklist or they're just checking off a box. But the thing to be careful about, guys, is when you do this, when you put machine learning and deep learning, which both are very, I would say for a data analyst, an entry level data analyst role, someone with that knowledge, um, I would be suspicious of that as a recruiter or even someone recruiting for this role, right? And so I think you want to be careful about listing all these buzzwords onto your resume because someone in your interview might look at your resume and yes, you got into the door and now you're talking with their HR or the actual data team, but they might ask you questions just to see if you truly know machine learning, if you
Mm,
truly know deep learning, right?
mm,
And if you start to fumble with your words or they can spot that you're, maybe telling a lie, they
mm,
don't want to hire a liar. They don't want
mm,
to hire someone who's just pretending to know they know something, right?
mm.
Hubert, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, right? Like I think it's better if you were to just not go off a checklist and know every single tool that you know how to use it, right? I would rather state the three or four, key technical skills, right, that you have, right? And really be like, oh, these are the tools I use it, right? And then really be prepared, like with the recruiter or with the manager or with the team, right? Like to be able to talk to that, right? What? Okay, great. You know Python, you know Pandas, NumPy, right? And really be like, okay, what do you know about it, right? Like, what do you use that package for, right? How have you used SQL, right? What what have you done with it? Like, oh, you were able to query data from our sales table with our customers table as well as, right? Like, so those are like much more interesting and it's going to make you stand out versus just going off a checkbox. So
Cool.
yeah.
Cool. Anything else to point out, or do you think our audience is ready for the new improved Tyrone Conrad resume?
Yeah, I think let's dive into that one because I think it'll bring it to life when the viewers see it. So
Super. Let's do that. So here is Tyrone's new improved resume.
yeah,
I'm
can we
gonna,
yeah can we keep that one on the far left? So
yeah. Let me scroll up here.
cool.
Cool.
Maybe Jackson, you could walk them through a little bit more of what the changes we did and do a compare contrast here.
Yeah, just right off the bat, guys, we've looked online for a resume template. I think it's really important to just make an absolute awesome first impression with your recruiter. You want to let them know by you finding a resume template that you're doing the extra work. You're going the extra mile in working hard and crafting something more aesthetically pleasing to your audience, right? A recruiter typically looks at your resume for what, I don't know, 30, 45, a minute.
Mhm.
Um, and so you want to have a very immediate impression on your recruiters and for them to say, okay, this one this is someone I want to call in and talk to. And so right off the bat, we did a complete overhaul of the resume template. You can see on the left side looks like this, and on the right side it looks more, it pops in your eye, right, Hubert?
Yep. Yep.
And then contact information, but the focus here that we want to really drill in on is just the bullet points that we revised. So Hubert and I, we changed up these bullet points on the left here to the right. So we changed develop monthly report for customer success and product directors to developed an automated marketing metrics report for stakeholders, saving company 20 hours of ad hoc requests per month. Now, if you think about and contrast the bullet points here, the left it states what they did, but on the right it also does, right? But the difference here is the impact that it made. It's saving the company 20 hours of labor per month. That's a lot of time being saved, and that's impact that Tyrone did, but it's not captured on the left. The second bullet point is that yes, he learned SQL on the job for work-related functions, but how did that improve the company's performance? How did it help the company? And so it says here on the right, utilize SQL to create data tables and perform complex analyses for campaign performance. So Tyrone was a marketing analyst intern. So it was important for him to help the company understand how their campaigns did. And so again, on the left, you state what you did. Yeah, you learned SQL. On the right, it also says you're doing SQL, but you're making an impact by creating data tables, which highlights data pipelines, and also you did complex analyses, which highlights analytical ability.
Yep.
So that's really the contrast here, guys. On the left, you're just simply stating it. On the right, you're saying your impact. You're telling the recruiter, hey, this is how I'm going to help your future company.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like you sort of like drove it to the point, right? Like we are directly using what we did earlier, right? The exercise with the job descriptions and finding those common themes, right? And we really want these themes to stick out in our new resume, right? And now you see like we're performing complex analysis, right? Not something that was really in the left hand side, right? And we know to a recruiter that's what they need to see and really find that as you are a much better fit, right? So yeah.
Yeah. And just going through the last bullet point here, guys, collect the data by creating end user surveys on the left. Yep, that's what you did. But on the right, it's saying that you did the same thing, but you also saved the company $150,000. As an intern, I would say that's very impressive. So yeah, I think my encouragement is yes, state what you did, make sure it matches the common theme requirements, but also state the impact that it made. Hubert, I want to take a step back here though. What if someone doesn't have this type of work experience? What if they're applying for a data analyst role, but
Mhm.
they might have some sort of different background? Like, would you say the approach should still stay the same? Like, what do you think?
I think that's a good question, right? Especially for folks who might have sort of limited job experience to start, right? I would not discount the stuff or the projects that you worked in school, right? I think that's very important. It's like it's the same thing. Like if you have limited work experience, state what you've done, right? And try to draw as much of those common themes and apply it in those bullet points and content, right? But if it's project, like do the exact same thing, right? Like if it's project you did in your business analysis class or your intro to database coursework, right? And yeah, you use SQL. What did you do with it? Maybe you were able to work in a cross team environment and demonstrate a very strong communication skills, right? And
Mm.
then in that role, you also used SQL to query data and really produce analysis from it, right? So I would not discount any of your project experience too. So that's another advice takeaway. So
Yeah, completely agree. You would be surprised with any of your past experience being not relevant. What I mean by that is you can probably take a lot from your past and do the same thing that we do, the same exercise that we did here, stating what you did and the impact that it made. Um, cool. So did you want to quickly go over, areas of expertise and skills, Hubert? Or
yeah, I think there was some stuff that we learned too, just chatting with connections and recruiters, right, in this field and been working in the industry, right? Something that they tend to actually like a lot is this personal profile at the top, right? Or on here on the left hand side, because that's something they would right away and try to understand. Okay, how are you storytelling yourself, right? So a brief one that we said here is like Tyrone is a data analyst with hands-on experience in all levels of analysis, including reporting, data pipelines, and data visualization. Right. So I would say that really recaps a lot of the things in the common themes, right? And in the three different roles that they're looking for these things. And then the second thing that I did want to talk about is how did we sort of remap the skill section, right? When we were chatting about this, the skill section is very lengthy and it just included a lot of stuff, right? And where we really wanted to boil it down was like, okay, what are the sort of 5 key things that Tyrone is good at, right? And Tyrone is good at Python and SQL, right? He's more proficient in those things, right?
Mhm.
He also has skills in R, statistics, Tableau, as well as Redshift and AWS. But he might not be as strong in that, right? But he's not saying, he wants to highlight Python and SQL as his strong suit, and then include other skill sets, but like maybe he's more learning about it, right? So instead of stating 10 different things, like let's cut it in half and really go with the skills you really feel comfortable talking and doing on a daily basis. So
Got it. Yeah. I mean, just looking at the resume on the left, it seems very laundry list like and very cluttery.
mhm,
And on the right side, it seems that Tyrone is really highlighting his strengths.
mhm,
That's like the big difference that I see.
yep, yep,
Cool. Hubert, I I mean I think we helped Tyrone out here. Kind of buffed up his resume here. Makes it look like, hey, he made an impact at his previous position.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
cool.
So, well, the next step is we'll take we're ready to like take Tyrone to applying to the jobs, right?
Go. There you go. Yeah, I mean, I feel comfortable with him applying to those 3 postings that we saw, and we did this exercise on 3 postings only, but you could probably look at the next few, like 5 to 10 job descriptions. Do the same exact thing here, like just map it out 3 to 5, 3 to 10, if you feel like, and just highlight the common themes that you saw and throw it onto your resume.
Yep. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, and to recap, we could share these great documents too in the link. When we share this video, so you can have access to how this resume looks like, how the old one looks like, right? And just some of this information. I think it'll be very helpful as you try this exercise yourself. So
Yeah.
um, cool. Any last things, Jackson, or I can close it up too.
No, that's a good point, man. So wanted to share with you guys that this template was grabbed from canva.com. So we'll link that in the description. And the transition, oh man, the transformation that we did from this guy to
Hmm.
this guy, it follows something called a star format. So you're illustrating the impact that you made. We'll also drop that into the YouTube video description.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's it. We'll provide you those links. Hubert, close us out.
Great. Yeah. So I hopefully everyone found that useful and can really use some of those insights that we brought on. I think one of the things to help us give a like and subscribe, right? That'll be awesome. The other thing is upcoming video that we have up. We actually were able to bring on someone who has a lot of hiring and recruiting background. Her name is Mohita. She's worked at from startups to big tech companies such as Uber and Yahoo on the hiring front. So we did a podcast with her, but stay tuned, and it's very exciting. So yeah,
Awesome.
cool, great, thank you, Jackson.